Hello, hello. Welcome to today's webinar and workshop. I see folks in the chat. Hi, Jessica. Great to see you joining from LA. Jim from Seattle. Welcome. So great to have you all here. Today, we are going to talk about the 5 myths of impact campaigns. So let's get started. In the meantime, if you have questions about impact campaigns, your own impact campaign, you want to share a little bit about your film, you can do that in the chat. So again, today we are going to have a workshop called Films Don't Change the World, 5 Myths About Impact Campaigns Debunked, brought to you by us here at Looky Looky Pictures. So before we get started, I invite you to take a deep breath, bring yourself here, close other tabs, turn off notifications, get distractions out of the way so that you are here and fully present for your film and in service to your film and the story that you're bringing to the world. So again, I invite you to just take a deep breath, breathe in, and breathe out, and just bring yourself here and put worries or anything that's on your mind aside. We are so honored and happy to have you here and appreciate your presence with us today. And before we jump in, want to acknowledge that since we're gathered from all over the world today, I want to recognize the historic and continued impact of colonization globally, as well as other forms of state-sponsored violence that continue today. And I invite you to tell us in the chat, where in the world are you joining from? I'm joining from South Florida, in the land of the Miccosukee, Seminole, and Tequesta. I saw a few folks joining and sharing with us in the chat where they're joining from. So let us know where in the world you are joining from. Jolia from New Jersey, thank you for sharing that. And invite you all to really see that this is a party. This is an impact party. So get your notebook, a pen, a fresh Google Doc, some snacks. Emojis are always welcome in the chat. It's always great to see your reactions. Hi, Emily. Great to see you here. Emily joining from New York. Also, you can invite a friend. At the top right, there is a share button. Well, not a share button. It says the word share in Crowdcast. And you can share with a friend who's also a filmmaker who would really benefit from this. There will be an instant replay right after we're done, and you will be able to have access to that and rewatch it. And again, share it with doc film friends that come to mind who might benefit from this. My name is Annie Mercedes. I'm impact producer, founder, and CEO at Looky Looky Pictures. I'm obsessed with helping independent documentary filmmakers reach their film's most impactful audience. And we're going to talk about who that is in a little bit. What we do. So here at Looky Looky Pictures, we connect the power of film with the power of people. We've worked with over 1,000 documentary filmmakers all over the world, just like yourselves. And some of you here, like Emily. Hi, Emily. Again, great to see you. From everything from advising on impact campaigns to producing full campaigns as well. So how we can help you. After today, you are more than welcome to reach out to us via Instagram or Facebook. We are really active on the DMs. So if you have questions that come up, if you want to share a little bit about your film, please feel free to reach out to us on Instagram and Facebook, and we will DM you back. You're also welcome to share on social media using the hashtag Impact Party and tag us at Looky Looky Pictures. And on Twitter, we are Looky Looky Pics. And we will certainly share out your work and your posts too. So with that, we welcome you in the chat. Tell us about your film. Tell us a log line, the title. Do you have an active impact campaign right now? There's also a poll feature on the right, so you can take that poll. I see 66% have said they're in production, and 100% so far have said that they're working on a feature. So most of you are working on a feature that is in production. Feel free to take that poll to the right of the screen under the chat icon. You can also drop in questions throughout. And at the end, we'll be taking questions with the most votes. So feel free to do that. So Jim shares just starting a feature, don't have a logline or title yet. Thank you for sharing that, Jim. Great to have you here. So our objective for today is that by the end of this workshop, you leave with at least one insight or aha moment or a new understanding that helps you move forward with your film's impact campaign, regardless of where you are, whether you're starting, you're in the middle of production. What you learn today will serve you throughout the life of the campaign and hopefully throughout the life of your film career. So again, ask questions, don't be shy, drop them in the chat, upvote questions as well. You can do that to the right of the screen under the chat icon. There's a question mark in a little bubble, in a thought bubble. That's where you can drop questions or upvote questions as well, or drop them in the chat and we will convert them into questions. So again, you're in good hands today. Everything you see here and that we will teach you here is based on our experience working with over 1,000 documentary filmmakers around the world, years of producing impact campaigns and events, and empowering dozens of filmmakers to confidently move forward with their own film impact campaign in our Guided Campaign Accelerator program. So first question is for you, actually. So do any of these resonate with you? This is multiple choice, and just drop a letter in the chat. Which one feels most like where you're at right now? A, I feel isolated, overwhelmed, and unsure of what my impact goals should be. B, I have big ambitions for impact, but only a vague sense of how to approach it. What do I actually do? What is impact? And C, how do I talk to my protagonists, the people in the film, about all of this? And how do I show them the film for the first time? So Justine says, B, I have big ambitions for impact, but only a vague sense of how to approach it. What do I actually do? Thank you for sharing that, Justine or Justin. And I apologize if I get mispronounced names. When you're a client of ours, we actually have you tell us the pronunciation of your name so that we get it right every time. Justine. Oh, great. Thanks, Justine. All right, so let us know which one of these resonates with you, and we will tailor this presentation to your needs. We always like encouraging and supporting you and meeting you where you're at. So this, what do we see here? Oh, I see A, B, and C, not isolated, but haven't done one before and looking to see where this project is going. Great, thank you, Jim. Yep, all of the above, that's also very, very possible. Very true to form, B and C. Okay, thanks, Carrie. Great. All right, keep them coming. So as you have questions, keep dropping them in the chat. So what do we have here? We have a movie theater, but there isn't really anyone in the seats. There's maybe one ticket that got sold. This is what we don't want. We don't want you to work for years and years, 3 to 5 years or more on a film, and finally, when it's complete, release it into the world and have crickets, have no one show up, or very few people. Many filmmakers come to us at this point in time, and a lot of them feel this way. They have big ambitions, big ambitious impact visions, but get bogged down in the details that don't lead to impact. Okay, what we want is this. We want a full audience. We want people who are engaged with your film. These are screenshots from different virtual screenings that we've produced where people are saying things like amazing film, so important and powerful, just dropping tons of hearts in the chat. I appreciate this movie very much. It's real and honest. That's what we want for you. So what will lead to that? Well, we're going to talk about that today. We had one client tell us that their screening was amazing. People were so engaged and they think that they learned a lot from the discussion. For weeks afterward, audiences were emailing her and her film participant about the event, and she was proud to put it together. This was a client from our guided campaign program who had already had her film out for 2 years and came to us saying, you know, I had the film out. I'm not sure what happened or how I can really create impact, even though it had full distribution and went through a whole festival tour. Then she came and worked with us, and we showed her how to put together a screening tour that was really condensed, really streamlined and strategic. so that she can have very specific impact and reach that audience that was most impacted by her film. So you might be thinking, I would love to hear from people who were impacted by my film, once it comes out, but how do I actually do this? So let's get to the heart of this. In order to do this, in order to reach people who are most deeply impacted by your film, you're going to need to be intentional, proactive, so not just reactive about whatever comes to you, but proactive and strategic, and have an impact-centered approach with the people closest to the film. Okay? And who is closest to the film? You might be surprised by this answer. That is you. You are closest to the film. You are the momentum and the fire that fuels the flame of the film's life. So we're going to actually start with you as the first foundational element of the film and its life. Why do we, what do we mean by that? We're going to dig into that in a second, but first tell us your role on the film. So tell us in the chat, what is your role on the film? Are you director, producer, creative producer? Let us know in the chat, and we would love to see who we have joining us today. So as you think about yourself and your role, I want you to reflect on, why are you personally drawn to this story? Do you have a connection to the story? Is it something that is something you experienced? Are you part of the community within the film? Let us know in the chat what personally drew you to the story, or reflect on that yourself. We had another client say, having an impact campaign helped me reach the people who were most excited about my film and make an impact in their lives. That's why I made the film. Okay, so I want you to think about when the first moment you thought, I'm going to make this film. From that moment, your impact began. You are making this film and making the decision to go forward with it because of something within you that's drawing you to the story. So certainly creating impact, if that is part of your reason for doing what you're doing, you've already begun thinking about impact, and you've kind of already begun your impact campaign in a sense. So the second piece of that we would encourage you to think about is, how are you taking care of yourself? Since you are the engine driving this, fueling this, think about what self-care practices you have so you don't burn out, so you don't get overwhelmed, so that it continues. What we like to say is that filmmaker care is story care. So caring for yourself is part of filmmaking, part of this process. For example, one of the things we do as a company is we are completely off and closed for 2 weeks at the end of December for those 2 weeks. So no emails, no Zoom, no social media, no DMs, no Facebook group, no text, no phone calls. Everything will be okay. It's okay to take a moment to just recharge and rest. That is part of what will make your impact stronger, when you have a grounded focus and care for yourself through this process. And finally, you direct the impact campaign. So I see in the chat we have director, producer, writer, director, producer, editor, more directors, producers, writers, producer, editor, many of you doing multiple things, even more reason to have a self-care practice that's proactive. But as directors or creative producers, as key decision makers in the story, you direct the impact campaign. So this is the first myth. I'm the director of the film, and after I direct it and it's done, I leave. Actually, you're the director of the impact campaign as well. So I'm the director of the film. I'm also the director of the impact campaign. You are going to make decisions about partners. You're going to make decisions about messaging. You're going to make decisions about what events you want to produce and pursue, where the film should screen and who should be hosts of the film. All of that is part of directing the impact campaign. So I want you to keep that in mind. That is part of why you are foundational to the entire impact campaign process. And with that, want you to conceive of impact as part of filmmaking. It's not separate. It's not a nice to have. If you want to have impact with your film, if you want your film to be used as a tool to further the work of those who are most impacted by the issues in your film, then impact is part of filmmaking. I kind of see it like editing is part of filmmaking, of course, but as a director, you can hire an editor, or you can gain insight into the language of editing. So, for example, if you have a director who's edited even a short or something small, they will have a different language and understanding of editing than a director who never has edited. The same with impact. Impact is part of filmmaking. Even if you produce one event, even if you just dip your toes into impact with one campaign, that will make you a stronger filmmaker in the long run for future films as well. And that's what we do with some of our clients in our guided campaign program. Teach you how to move forward with your own impact campaign for your film. And many filmmakers come to us having done this, having tried to produce their impact campaign, but feel overwhelmed, like we saw at the beginning. They're not sure where to start. They might feel alone, and they're sort of spinning their wheels and burn out. That's not why you're here. That's why we're a resource to you, so that doesn't happen. So the second piece of this is your film participant. So remember, we're starting with who's closest to the film. First it's you, then your film participant. So your film participant is this second layer. Tell us in the chat, how do you feel about talking to your film participant about your film's impact? You can just drop a letter. A, I want to talk to them, but I'm not sure how. Or B, I did, and I feel great about it. Or C, something else. Maybe this doesn't quite capture where you're at with your film participant. So let us know in the chat. So here, what we encourage you to do is listen to your film participants' hopes, dreams, fears, and concerns. So this is an ongoing conversation, something that you will continue, not just that'll happen once, but they are part of your film team in a sense. So want to read some, before I move forward, some responses in the chat. We have A, I want to, but I'm not sure how, but excited. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. And Emily, C, ongoing. It's ongoing for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ongoing conversation. So this is an example of one client that we worked with in our guided campaign program. The film is called And So I Stayed. This is a film about this is about survivors of domestic violence who were imprisoned for their acts of survival. And the filmmakers that we worked with in this case had a goal that we worked with them to establish, which was to free survivors. They were working very closely with their film participants about their hopes, dreams, fears, concerns, and also expectations around what may or may not happen once the film is out in the world, what may or may not happen with distribution. You will have to do a little bit of film industry educating with your film participants, and that's okay. That is something that is better to do earlier than later. So this particular film team kept moving forward with their goal and ended up releasing their film participant, helping get their film participant released from prison 6 years early. Incredibly close collaboration. This was a story that was very near and dear and personal to the directors. So this is one example of really considering and connecting with your film participant. And there are so many that we can reference. Before we move forward, I want you to reflect on who is a film participant. So when I say film participant, who do you think about? Is that one person? Is that many people in your film? So let's define that. So we define a film participant as a person with agency in the story that's unfolding on screen and is willfully participating in the filming of their personal life. So two key things there: willfully participating. So it's not archival, for example. They know they're being filmed. And then second, it's about their personal life. So this is a little bit different from, say, an expert. They're representing themselves in a professional capacity. rather than a personal or emotional, or a subject who's passive. They don't have agency, right? Like archival footage, or a character who's scripted. So I want to be clear about that so that you have that language to reference in the future. Thank you for the question. Keep those questions coming. So again, explain what to expect and when throughout the process, both from the production, during production, and throughout impact. Okay, this is an ongoing conversation that you'll have with your film participants, and continue to move forward with that conversation as your film evolves, as your opportunities evolve and change as well. One of the things that we have as a central pillar in line with those conversations is the nothing about us without us principle, which in summary means that no policy or strategy should be decided without the direct participation of members of the groups affected, particularly groups often thought to be marginalized from political, social, and economic opportunities. In other words, if you are making a film about someone and you want to design a way in which their story is going to be experienced, have them be part of that conversation as to how that story is experienced in the world. And you might be surprised by what they feel or think and the ideas they have that you would have never thought of. So absolutely center that film participant in that design process of the impact campaign, which is something we teach very directly and deeply within our guided campaign program and with our clients at large. So ask them. In other words, ask them how and if they want to be involved. Collaborate with your film participants to proactively consider and plan for how the film and its rollout may affect their own life, particularly if they are vulnerable, if they need legal support, if they're children. All of those are scenarios that we have encountered, and really encourage you to have those conversations again sooner rather than later. Okay. And here, let me know if you see the slide. Do you have a blank slide? Let me know in the chat, or can you see that? All right, I'm going to just switch for a second. Oh, you see the slides, okay. Huh, they come up blank for me. All right, well, let's continue. And I will look off of another screen. Okay, so 3. So partners. So the next aspect of this is partners and partnerships. Oh, here we go. There's a blank slide in there. Okay. So the next myth we're going to debunk is that your protagonist signed a release and you'll share the film with them before it's out and you're good. That's a myth. Rather, what we want to think is, and want to think about is, I will have conversations with my film's participant throughout filming and rollout about their fears, hopes, dreams, and share mine with them. So that is where we want to be when it comes to really centering your film participant in that way and in this process, so that your film's impact is more impactful. Okay, so 3 partners. Is that what you see on screen? Tell me in the chat. Thanks, Audrey. I see you. Yes, thanks, Audrey. And before I go on, I want to also give a thank you, everybody. Okay, big shout out to the team behind the scenes, Audrey Fernandez and Deborah Rudolph, who are making sure that we are working, and we did tons of tech checks to make sure you have a great experience. So shout out to the team for that. Okay, so partners, let's talk about partners. All right, so tell us in the chat, have you started reaching out to potential partners? A, not yet. B, I've started researching a few. C, I'm in conversation with some. D, I'm actively collaborating with several. Right, I see A, C, not yet, in conversation. Great. D, I'm actively collaborating. Oh, yay, Emily, great to hear that. John B, I've started researching. All right, so all across the board, at least one from each. There's always more to do, Emily. Remember that good, better, best framework. Okay, so partners. Partners are organizations, they can be communities, they can be thought leaders who've been working on the issues of your that are in your film already, likely for years. So you might be working on your film on average 3 to 5 years, but they might have been working on the issues in your film for decades. So they are truly experts at how to move forward and support and see changes. They're in the front line of trying to create impact in the issues in your film. We worked with one film called Councilwoman and had a private VIP screening of the film. And at that screening, there was a vice president of a 30-year-old organization with 3 million members who said, "This is the film we didn't know we needed." That is the power of film. Okay, I like to say no one cries over a policy paper, and policy papers are great. I used to work on policy papers. I went to graduate school, love statistics. I did the appendices of policy papers, and that's what made me realize we need story. We need a story to these numbers, and that's where you come in. And this is why your film is so powerful. It is a wonderfully packaged explanation, education tool, inspiration tool, the key being a tool for the organizations on this front line. So them having your film has them be able to move forward. They're able to move forward with your film as a tool. And this is exactly the one of the best things that can be said about your film, that the film is something that they needed, that they can use to move forward and inspire folks, or whatever the verb that you want to insert is specific to your change, to your action, your call to action is. That is what partners can best do with your film. So in other words, your partners are your most passionate audience. They are as passionate about the film's impact as you, because they can utilize your film as a tool to advance their own impact work. So I want you to think about partners as sort of the center, or the stone that ripples out from a pond, right? Your audience will ripple out from your partners like an echo. The members, the organizations, the chapters that make up those partners are the place to start when it comes to getting to your impact audience, which we'll talk about in a second. So this is the image that I want you to think about, rippling out from your partners and really focusing on member and chapter-based organizations that are really well organized. That's the best place to start versus, say, a think tank, unless your film is really about policy or something like that. You want well-organized groups because they're already organized. They already have a community that's engaged and who produce events of some sort, who gather their members in some way. Meetings, conferences, monthly talks, anything like that, any sort of memberships, incentives, because that way you know that they have worked to create events that are sometimes like films or film or engagement events for their community. So you likely already have many partners but don't realize it, or you're wondering what to do with the ones you have. So again, from the moment that you decided to make the film, from that moment all the way through when you start editing, you don't even have to get to post. During that time, you have probably encountered thought leaders, communities, organizations that all are either even in the film or discuss the ideas and issues in the film in some way. All of those are potential partners, or they're already partners because they're part of the film. So as you make your film, organize that list of folks in a spreadsheet, or our clients get our template with an Airtable, which is a tool for organizing information. And those are all ways that you can keep track of who those folks are. And then when it comes time to reach out to them and you have opportunities that they can engage with, you have them organized. Here's one example. So this is a film that we worked with in order to produce an event. This is a film called Through the Night. It's about childcare providers and caregivers, two specifically who have a home-based childcare center, and in the state of New York. So we worked with partners whose job it was to support caregivers in New York State. Those partners led us to legislators who were decision makers, who were the heads of the committees that made decisions about caregivers. So in this case, we were able to invite them to a live event, a virtual event, where they engaged, where those legislators, it was an assemblyman and a senator for New York State, were in direct conversation with the film participants who are caregivers, as well as partner organizations. So here we have key decision makers talking directly to film participants, and the attendees were the members of those organizations. So in the chat, the caregivers and childcare providers were chatting directly and asking questions of those elected officials. Those elected officials really had an impactful experience hearing from those caregivers, reached back out to us to ask if the film could be shown to the entire New York State legislative body. We arranged that. Shortly after that, there was a legislation that came up to vote and resulted in the passage of the largest budget that supported childcare providers in New York State's history. So that's one example in which partners were able to help us reach decision makers. So help us reach the right people who could create change. And we have a deep case study on this on our website that you can watch. So the next myth we want to debunk is that partners host screenings and sit on panels. Rather than that, partners can use my film as a tool to educate and inspire action that lead to change. People behaving, feeling, thinking, voting differently, doing something differently. That is what change is, right? When we think of the word impact, impact just means a change, a before and after. Okay, so before, there was a certain state in the world and people were behaving, feeling, thinking, doing something. And the impact is the change. What are they doing after? They experience your film, they experience an event, they experience something that has them change their behavior in some way, or their feelings or thoughts. That is what impact is ultimately. And partners are at the heart of that and the front line of that for many of the issues in your film. So next, let's talk about the right people, your impact audience. That is the next piece of the puzzle. So tell us in the chat, who is your film's impact audience? Can you describe them? Can you tell us who they are? Do you have a sense of who they are? Let us know in the chat. We would love to hear who you are trying to reach, or who you think you might be trying to reach with your film. So your impact audience is the right people. They're the people who can take action that will lead to change. Just like the example about the New York State legislators, they were the right people that film could strategically reach in order to create change in that for that film in that moment in time. So one distinction I want to make here is between outreach and impact. So outreach is getting to as many people as possible, right? This is often the goal of distribution. And impact is about getting to the right people, okay? those right people are the ones who can create that change, take some action that will move the needle on the issues in your film. And when we put them together, outreach and impact, we get to as many of those right people as possible. This is the sweet spot. This is the goal of what we do, and how we want you to think about your own work. Not just as many people as possible, like posting indiscriminately, or often we think of audience engagement as just posting on social media. That's very draining. It's not strategic. We really want to be strategic about who are those right people, identify them, and go to where they are. They might not be on social media. They might be in other places. You might need to go through a partner to reach them, just like we did with those New York State legislators. So they're often decision makers, just like in the example of the New York State legislators. By that, we mean that their decisions or actions will lead to needle-moving change on the issue you hope your film's campaign influences in some way. And that's not always the case. It can also be, say, there's a film about, let's imagine there's a film about recycling, and their strategic impact audience is middle-class families who don't currently recycle, right? That's a whole different strategy than getting to, say, an elected official. But you want to be really specific about who you want to take action. So the question to ask yourself is, who do you want taking action? And that's something you can talk to your partners about. They're already trying to reach these folks. So that's why partners are so important and foundational to this as well. So here's another example. This is a film that was also in our guided campaign program called Missing in Brooks County. It is about migrants who go missing when trying to come to the United States along the US-Mexico border. This film is a film that hosted a VIP screening, so also called a brain trust. So a brain trust is really a private screening for select partners. So in this case, this film hosted a brain trust that connected them with members of Congress and beyond. One of the co-directors said it feels good to be moving forward after working on the film for 5 years. So this is a film that during the guided campaign program, they produced their brain trust. The partners they had at their brain trust were able to connect them strategically to decision makers. And they let us know afterwards. They wrote back to us and said the brain trust is continuing to benefit us and lead to more and more connections that are really impactful. So that is a very strategic way of moving forward with your impact campaign. See how different this is from just anyone and everyone posting whenever. No, we want to be really strategic about this aspect of the work and all of it, and very intentional as well. So sometimes your impact audience can be a community, a group of people, or just a few individuals, as we have described earlier. So this is the next myth we want to debunk. I want my film to reach as many people as possible. Let's reframe that and instead leave here thinking, I need my film to be seen by as many of the right people as possible, the ones who can impact change. Okay, that is your impact audience, the right people who can impact change. And number 5, our favorite, drum roll, transformational impact. So transformational impact is where all of this culminates. And what do the 4 layers before this have in common? Can anyone tell me in the chat, what do they have in common? From you individually as the director, producer, filmmaker, your film participant, your partners, your impact audience, what are they? They are all people, okay? So if your film falls on a movie screen and there's no one there to see it, does it make an impact? No, it doesn't, because you need people. Remember that first slide where it was empty? There was no one there to see it. So you can do all of this work, put so much emotion, time, energy, life force into creating a life's work, right? A feature film or any other medium of cinema. But if no one is there to see it, then what is it for? If it brings you joy to create it and you find joy in the creation process, we absolutely advocate for that and encourage you to do that. But we also want you to have people actually see the film, right? That's ultimately what we hope this is about. So, with that, we think about transformational impact, true impact and change that leads to people taking action versus transactional watching. So, even if folks are watching it, then what? Are they doing something? Are they behaving differently, thinking differently, expressing themselves differently, seeing themselves differently? So, transformational impact that puts people at the center of this rollout strategy is really much more powerful than transactional impact when it comes to creating a change in the world. So, without optimizing for transformational change, you will feel like nothing has happened, right? There, like I mentioned earlier, filmmakers come to us after their film is out for years, after they have distribution, and they still feel like, oh, wait, nothing is happening. Like I went to film festivals and I know people saw it, I have the numbers, but it feels like nothing happened. They're not feeling that impact. They're not getting to the impact audience who is really resonating with their film. So as a quick reminder, put any questions you have in the chat. We're almost at Q&A time. So any questions you have, thoughts, anything that might come to mind, anything specific about your film, even we can workshop that, drop it in the chat. So The Limits of My World is another film that we worked with in our guided campaign program. This is a filmmaker who came to us, and I quoted earlier, and she had already done about 2 years of a festival run and tried to move forward with her film, but also came to us and said, it doesn't feel like anything is happening, or how can I really make deep impact that I can feel, right? Connecting with audiences. So after working with us in guided campaign, we guided her through organizing an international screening tour 2 years after the film was released. So I know there's a lot of emphasis on what about the production timeline, what about before the film is complete, but there's a lot that can still happen after a film is released as well. And many filmmakers come to us again after a film has been out for a while and they don't feel the impact of the film in the way that they were hoping, and we help them build that. So the director of the film said the program, the guided campaign program, helped me build self-care into my process, which we talked about before, and I'm feeling much better about doing this work because of it. And Heather, the director here, was working on her own and produced an international screening tour. So what we do is really, really streamline, really focus, really strategic, so that you cut out all of the other stuff that won't actually lead to impact, so that a small team, even a 1, 2, sometimes 3, but really 1 to 2 person team can produce an entire impact campaign with guidance from us, our templates and things like that as part of our guided campaign program. So finally, if impact is important to you, then prioritizing it as you strategize your entire rollout is important. From premiere to publicity to distribution, having impact be part of what informs all of that, your entire film's rollout, is key. So again, bringing it back, wrapping this up, putting a bow on it, the number of followers or screenings is not an indicator of the depth of your film's impact. Rather, needle-moving change in the lives of people most closely affected by the issues in your film is an indicator of transformational change. So what we want to do is have goals that are aligned with that impact audience, use partners to connect you with that impact audience, and move forward towards those goals that create transformational impact. So the final myth is that films change the world. So can you guess what we are reframing this into? Films change the world. Nope. Not after this workshop, they don't. I hope we never have you say that again. Not films change the world. Instead, films don't change the world. People do. People are at the heart of all of this. Why we do this. The most powerful thing is, and my favorite thing, and why I do this work, is going to a film screening and having someone come up to you as the director and say, this film changed my life. This film made me think differently. This film I never expected something like this, or I never saw myself on screen. Has anyone had an experience like that? Tell us in the chat. That is powerful. That is impact. That is why we do this. And connecting with those people, having them at the center of this work is what will help you have that experience, right? It comes back to you. You're the fuel that moves this forward, and people coming up to you and saying that is what will also propel you to continue this work. So again, films don't change the world, people do. Keep those people in mind. Emily says, yes, it's the best. John says, yes, 4 exclamations, 3 exclamations. That's great. That's certainly why we do this work, to reach those people. So to summarize, you are foundational to this. Take care of yourself. Talk to your film participant about their hopes and dreams, their fears and concerns throughout the process. Connect with partners who've been doing this for decades. You don't have to invent new resources, or that's often what filmmakers come to us asking about. What if I create a map? Or what if I create a directory? That's probably already existing with the partners that you who can use your film as a tool. What the best thing you can create is your film, and then have that be the nucleus to everything else, like watch party kits and things like that, which are all things that we teach in Guided Campaign. Those partners will help you get to your impact audience, right? The right people who can create change, and you want some sort of behavior or change from them, behavior to change from them, their thoughts, feelings, actions. That is your impact audience. And then finally, that all culminates into transformational change rather than just transactional watching. So our objective for today, as a reminder, is that by the end of this workshop, you leave with at least one new insight or aha moment, or a new understanding that's helped you move forward with your film's impact campaign. So we would love to hear what those are. If you have an aha moment, drop it in the chat. What was most helpful to you? What was an insight? What was a new understanding? Drop questions in the chat, upvote questions. On the right-hand side, there's a question mark. I see 4 questions right now. And we'll get to those in a second. And again, tell us in the chat what resonated with you, what was most helpful, what questions do you have right now? And as a reminder, you can always DM us on Facebook or Instagram, and we will get back to you. We love sending voice memos, so you'll get a voice memo back or a chat. Don't be shy if you're thinking about something later today, tomorrow, whenever. Months from now, feel free to DM us, and we will get back to you. So with that, let's move to Q&A. And keep dropping those insights in the chat. We love to hear from them. John said, no one cries over a policy paper is a good one. I've been trying to say this to clients for years, but didn't have the words. Oh, great. Glad to hear that, John. Thank you for sharing that. And let's look at some questions. Actually, before that, one more from Emily. Oh, I see more. Aha, great. Love being reminded that there's love being reminded that's not that it's not all about transactional numbers. It's more about using the film as a tool to educate and inspire action that lead to change. Absolutely. Action, all caps. Absolutely. Matt says building audience and impact as part of a pyramid starts with ourselves. Absolutely, it does. Okay, great. All right, let's get to some questions. So Emily, quite a few questions. Okay, I'm going to try to do this lightning round so that the recording doesn't go too long. You'll have access to the recording immediately, by the way. Emily asks, is protagonist still a term used? Great question. So this is in regards to film participant. This evolves and changes as time evolves and changes, and as our thoughts in the documentary world evolve and change. So we at Looky Looky Pictures had the great honor and fortune to work with a film called Subject, all about the experience of film participants who had previously been in commercially successful documentary films. And the film is about how having been in those films impacted their life. In speaking with them, they decided that film participant was more of a term that aligned with how they felt. And given that, we now, moving forward, use the term film participant. We had previously been using protagonist. You might see it here and there, but we're updating our materials. And protagonist, they felt felt more like a literary character because it's so used in literature. So film participant is the term that we use now. That may or may not change or evolve, but we practice what we preach in that nothing about us without us. If film participants want to be called film participants, we're going to call them film participants. So thank you for the wonderful question, Emily. And it is so great to see you here. And so many other guided campaign alum. Can we just get a shout out in the chat to all of our guided campaign alum? I know Deborah's in the background has been saying hi to folks, and we saw that you all were registered. We were so excited to see you. Okay, next question. And you can upvote questions as well. So read some of those questions and upvote them. So the ones with the most votes, I will move up. Otherwise, I'm going to go in the order that I see. And there are 7. All right, let's see how many we can get to in the next 8 minutes. So one minute answer per question. I'm long-winded, so here we go. All right, next question from Jessica. Jessica, so great to see you here. Jessica asks, would you recommend working with an impact producer prior to filming? What are the benefits of working with an impact team and using, it jumped on. Okay, here we go. What are the benefits of working with an impact team and using learnings to guide the actual production process? Great question. So with teams that are really small, like 1 to 2 teams, 1 to 2 filmmakers, really scrappy, pulling your resources together, we recommend actually getting guidance from someone like us or an impact producer who has done this in the past, who will help inform the film industry stuff, the watch party kits, distribution, all of the things that are really specific to the film industry, but then also bringing in someone who is interested or affected by the issues in the film. For example, there's one film that was an alum and they rejoined our guided campaign program. The film is called Being Michelle. It is about a deaf woman who was arrested and did not have any access to interpretation while she was in prison. So she had no way of communicating or being communicated with. And that team hired us in guided campaign to guide them through their process, but their impact producer actually doing the implementation is someone, during the time they were working with us, someone who's deaf herself. So that person who is of the community, close to the issues of the film, will have way more knowledge about the issue and an expertise in the issue area, in the impact itself, than someone who's only industry knowledge, which is us. So that is what we see as the sweet spot. That is the kind of the hack. You have one decision maker, the director or producer, an implementing impact producer who has some sense of the issues in the film or some expertise or has worked with a film of the same subject matter before, and then someone with industry knowledge, like a consultant like us through our guided campaign program. That's what we would recommend. When it comes to prior to filming, you've already started. If you're thinking about impact, from the moment you decide to make a film that you want to have impact in the world, you've already started thinking about impact. So I would recommend watching webinars like this, coming to workshops, looking for resources. We have a free advanced private training. We have tons of resources on our website, and just kind of thinking through your impact, but hiring someone, not until you're really in production and have a sense of the story, because your story could change and the themes could change. So what you really want is a story that won't change. You're not waiting for lab results. You're not waiting for a court case. Your story has a structure and some sense of what the themes and issues will be. Some things will change, of course, as happens, but certainly recommend doing that. I hope that is helpful. And again, DM us if you want to follow up about this on Facebook or Instagram at Looky Looky Pictures. Okay, next question. I see some upvotes here. So next question from Loretta. We have an impact campaign plan. We are now looking for funding for the impact campaign to connect with our partners and host discussions of the film and how they can use it as a tool. What are good funding sources? Great question. This is a very common question. So it's actually the same answer. Oh, let me start answering. It's the same answer as for the film. So the same sources that fund your film are the same kinds of sources that would also fund the impact campaign. Everything from crowdfunding all the way to philanthropic funds, to industry funds, to distribution funds. The only thing that's a little bit different in impact is that once you have a finished film, you can sell that as a package and license it out for screening. So you have revenue, direct revenue from that as well. What I suggest is going to foundations, philanthropic individuals who are interested in the issues of your film, who may or may have not funded film in the past. So they can be folks who usually the hack to this is going to policy papers, seeing who funded those policy papers about the issues in your film, seeing who funded those and approaching them and saying, hi, I see you funded this policy paper about XYZ issue. I'm making a film about it. Would you like to consider our film? I wouldn't necessarily say it like that. I would say something like, are you interested in learning more about our film? If so, can we have a quick chat and scheduling a call? But the reason I say that is because within the film industry, there are a few funders that specifically fund film impact, and they get hundreds and hundreds of solicitations from different films. So they are weeding through hundreds and hundreds of films. Whereas if you are the only film in a pool of, say, nonprofits, all of those nonprofits, all of those projects could potentially use your film as a tool. So that is something that we've seen be very successful. We have at times for the films that hire us directly, not our guided campaign program, been able to secure funds for films through that method. So hope that helps. Next question, again, if you have more questions, follow up, just DM us. And I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. You can upvote questions so that I can get to those first. And I see some other insights being shared. Sally said, love hearing that making the film is the most important, as sometimes I get too worried about getting it out there even before we finish making it. Oh, thank you for that insight. Absolutely. So certainly focus on making the best film you can. And in the meantime, have like a document or come to things like this that kind of help you process and keep writing about your film and what the impact you imagine it will be. Oh, I see we have 1 minute left. Matt, yes, Thriving Filmmaker on 2019. Absolutely. Great to see you here. Always great to see you at our events. Emily, guided campaign is wonderful. I've been through the program myself and hope to return soon for another round of impact progress. We would love to have you, Emily. Absolutely, anytime. So I'm going to take one more question. I'm going to take the one at the very top because we have 1 minute left. I want to be mindful and respectful of your time. All other questions, truly DM us and we will get back to you. So the question is from Jim. Jim, you ask, how do you decide if you should have an impact campaign? Great question. So if you are here, you probably want your film to be seen by the right people, by people who can watch the film and say, this is going to change something. How I think, how I feel, how I believe, what I vote for, all of that. If you have any inkling of that hope, right? So ask yourself, what are my hopes and dreams? What are my fears and concerns? That's actually the very first thing you do in guided campaign. If your answer to the hopes and dreams is that the film will create some change in the world or some impact or reach a specific people, who will then use the film as a tool or it will impact them in some way, then you should have an impact campaign. Because the way to do that, the way to reach those folks is through an impact campaign, and we can help you do that. So that was our last question. I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you so much for being here, for your presence. You will get the recording of this. And again, DM us if you have any thoughts, questions, want to share your film. We love, love, love hearing from you. All right, everybody, take care and be well. You're welcome. You're welcome. Great to see you all.